Hi, my name is Gerhard Gschwandtner, and welcome to Selling Power TV. Today, we have the great pleasure of meeting with Todd Duncan. He's the co-founder of myfuel.io. Welcome, Todd.
Gerhard, it is always good to see you, my friend. Thank you for this time today. It's always fun to chat with you.
My first question is, what should we know about you that is not in your LinkedIn profile?
That I have a heart of gold and that I am loyal to a fault. That's never in a bio, but I'm a relationship guy, and I love people. And I think in business, I've done my best to choose the right people to do business with. And sometimes when we all, like all leaders, make a bad choice, sometimes I hang on to them too long in hopes that they will, come around or whatnot. I think probably the other thing that's not in my LinkedIn profile is I am a survivor of hard. I think that one of the greatest gifts I can bring to the world is that hard is part of life, and getting through hard is what gives us strength and character and muscle and grit. That's who I am. Yeah.
We don't advertise our disappointments.
The interesting thing is that's where real power comes from. It's not just disappointments. It's everything that doesn't go the way we think it should go. And that's the heart of hard, when your perspective is not enlightened to allow you to realize that hard is a gift. Now, we all don't sign up for hard, right? We don't wake up in the morning and say, universe, God, bring me hard. I just want to see if I have the strength to get through it. But at the end of the day, some of the hard is the greatest gift. Now, some could be avoided too, particularly the hard that we've had once that we have twice or we have 3 times because we haven't changed strategy or approach. This guy was a botanist in the 1800s, and his philosophy was that when a caterpillar went into a cocoon, could you accelerate the rebirth of the butterfly? And he would go into the cocoons, and at stage 1 or stage 2 or stage 3, he would cut the cocoon open and measure the mortality rate of the caterpillar transforming into the butterfly. What he theorized actually got proven out, that if you try to accelerate the transformation of a butterfly, it will not have the strength to survive. And it is the pushing and the exercise and in those last stages of that cocoon breaking open that really allows the butterfly to survive. And so I think that's a good metaphor for life.
What was the hardest part for you?
One of them was realizing that when I brought somebody in to really help me get organization of our company's finances, because I had an accountant that wasn't doing a good job getting behind on paying bills and things like that, I had a kind of a notion that maybe something was going wrong with my CFO and that something was happening behind the scenes. And so I called a forensic accounting firm to come in at night when he wasn't there and just do some accounting. And I found out that he had taken $40,000 out of the company. I realized that in those 3 years, I had somebody I trusted that stole $1 million from me. That was really hard. It was hard to go through that, and was hard to try to come up with, like, what could I have done? Because I didn't really even realize it until we had large deposits coming in, and there should have been more money there, and there wasn't enough. And so that was hard, and I had to kind of re-gear myself around what are fiscal disciplines and what are some of the changes that I could make. But I think every entrepreneur probably has had some of these various degrees of near-death financial experiences. And when you steal $80,000 in two $40,000 chunks, I think you've gotten too bold, and something is going to reveal your criminal activity when you have a company. That $80,000 makes a difference between paying bills or not paying bills in a month. That was hard.
How did you handle this personally, and what were the consequences for you, and what were the consequences for that person?
I was trying to approach this from the kind of the right angle and the right approach. And what I actually did is, when I had a notion of what he had done, I called my legal team and I said, we're going to bring John in, and we're going to bring him in under the notion that we're starting an internet marketing company, which he wanted to do. And I invited John in to meet with 2 investors. And so when John came into the office and I introduced him to the 2 investors, I left the room. They were actually attorneys, and 2 hours later, he admitted to everything. And so I decided that I would file charges against him. And I did that for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to see if I could get any of that money back. And the other is, it was the right thing to do when you purposely, intentionally break trust and steal money. Grand theft. I think he was convicted of 2,500 counts of grand theft, and he went to prison and had to pay me $250 a week And that lasted about 6 months, and then he got out of jail. But how did I handle that? I handled that in two ways. One was I always try to look at the glasses half full. And so I asked, what's good about this? And what's good about it is that I learned a huge lesson, never to be repeated again. And that was that just because I look at invoices and sign off on them, it doesn't mean that that's the actual check that is being sent and written, even though it appears that way in the system. And then one day I said, it could be a lot worse. I could not have the million to lose. And that kind of put me back on the right track. And, in 30 years, Gerhard, I've had 3 financial hard setbacks, right? And all of them had varying degrees of this first one. But personally, I always try to understand that hard is a lesson. And if I understand the lesson, it will no longer be a mistake. And I think that's a big thing for people to understand, is that mistakes that are the same that keep being made proves that you haven't learned the lesson. My modification was there's no check that's ever going to leave this building that isn't signed by me. That solved pretty much everything, right? But personally, I did have enough to lose. It wasn't like I was broke all of a sudden. It was just like, wow, that's a lot of money. And I was sad for him. I was sad for his family. We had a friendship. I forgave him, but it was just like, okay, there's nothing more I could do. So I have to let that go. And hanging on to stuff like that too long, I think, is an anchor that we don't need in our life. You either learn the lesson and get on with it, or you don't learn the lesson and commiserate about it. And I just had too much to do to worry about 3 years of theft. And I just kind of put a bow around it and said, let's go. Next step.